next Montel. He used to work for the CIA, making disguises for American agents. Now he devotes his life to helping victims of terrible tragedy.
He was hit by a car.
Byron lost his ear. Bob made him a new one. Kathleen lost an eye to cancer. Bob made her a new one. Ann has a brand new nose, all with no surgery. If that's amazing, Bob actually made this burn victim a whole new face. Reconstructing bodies and lives. Don't go away. That's coming up right now on Montel.
Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking to people who, because of one man, their lives have been changed now forever. Please welcome our first guest, Mr. Bob Barron, to the show. I do a pretty powerful introduction, a man who has changed the lives of people forever. Let's back up for a second and talk a little bit about your history. You know, you spent a lot of time in the military, right?
Yes.
You were in the military for how long?
4 years in the Marine Corps. I was with the CIA for 24 years.
24 years. Now, I'm trying to figure out, how does a CIA agent help people and change people's lives? Rather than locking them up or, you know, getting them. But you had a very odd job in the CIA. What was the job that you did in the CIA?
Senior disguise specialist.
Senior disguise specialist.
Advanced disguise.
Advanced disguise specialist.
Mission Impossible.
Long before Hollywood could figure out how to do prosthetics that moved and things like this, you were doing this stuff for the real deal.
Yes.
And doing this so that people could go undercover. I know you're still under security constraints to this point, so let's just talk around it. So doing this so that people could perform their jobs and possibly have different identities.
Lives depended upon the realism of their disguises. I mean, I kept agents alive with their disguise.
And we're talking disguises that were so real that a person this close, getting ready to do interrogation, could not tell the difference.
That's right.
Talk about this for a second, because what everybody's about to see today is probably the most amazing things that you will ever get to see. What did you learn because of your ability to help change a person's identity and keep them concealed? You could also create things for people who might not have something.
Right. I decided that there's no better feeling than to give someone back their quality of life they were used to before their differences.
And let's talk about the reason why some people have these kinds of differences can be anything from a birth defect to a tragic accident. There are so many people in this country today who have been injured on the job, injured at work, they have facial deformities, and they stay at home, folks. Who was the first person that you helped that wasn't what part of your job?
I went to a seminar here in Washington, or in New York. I did find that the disfigurements that the people were involved with, I could help these people. You know, like you said, I could bring them out of hiding. Mm. I could give them back some of their life that they were used to before their differences. And at that time, I knew what I was going to do when I retired from the agency. I knew that I could help these people.
And now you've given this person the ability to walk into a room, and most people don't even know that there's a problem.
No, they don't. No, it helps the person go out into the public again and interact with the public without having the embarrassing stares and the unwanted attention that is drawing, that's produced by their differences.
I'm sorry, I want somebody
to
see some of this. I want you to take a look at it. Kathleen's life changed forever 12 years ago. I want you to take a look at this.
Before cancer, I was a happening girl. Everything's going wonderfully, and your doctor looks at you and says, you're very, very ill. I was first diagnosed with cancer in June of 1991. The surgeon thought he got it all, but he was the eternal optimist, but the oncologist knew the cancer was all over the place. It had gone to the lymph nodes. It had spread to the brain and both hips and the spinal cord. So that's when I said I'd like to go and have a bone marrow transplant. They give you 7 days of high-dose chemo. The catch is you have about 10 days to 2 weeks with absolutely no immune system. And my eye started to itch. The ear, nose, and throat doctors came down and looked. They didn't tell me, but I guess they told my family what it was. In the South, apparently, there's a spore in the air, Aspergillus fungus, which is 25% of us apparently have it in our sinuses or our lungs at any given time. And it would never pose a problem unless you were immunosuppressed. The fungus is in the sinuses and proceeds in the optic nerve and goes into the brain, where you have 2 or 3 days of strokes and die. They came in and said, Ms. Harder, we have to remove your eye. They had explained to me that this fungus very possibly would go through the septum and into the other eye, and that there was a possibility I would wake up with no eyes, no sight at all. And I really did just pray to just die on the table. Dying is so easy, and recovering is very difficult. I'd been known since, 4 or 5 years old as having these big eyes, and I remember sales clerks leaning over the counter saying, "Oh my, where did you get those big brown eyes?" And that was my trademark. To have that gone was tough. It really looked like Halloween. It was pretty devastating. I just stayed away from mirrors. I still do, actually. I'm an interior designer. I take something that doesn't function and I make it function. I take something that's unattractive and I make it attractive. I take something ugly and make it beautiful. And I said, I can't fix this. This is unfixable. I just really didn't think anything could be done.
Well, please welcome Kathleen to the show. Okay? I can't tell, truthfully, that your left eye is prosthetic. I mean, I can see the fact that it's not moving, it's not blinking. But if I just looked at you, I can't tell that you've had any work done here at all. How much of this part of the eye orbit is prosthetic?
It comes to the corner of the eye, down. See the eye bag? I designed it so this would look like eye bag, so you wouldn't be able to see that. Okay. And then it comes up underneath, and she puts this in, it plugs in, because there's a lot of undercut. If you go like this, you can see the undercut, so she doesn't need adhesive to put the prosthetic device in. She puts it up and then pushes in, and it stays in all day.
How has this changed your life since you've been able to get this? First off, you don't have to wear the patch anymore all the time.
That's the key. Well, I just received it about 10 minutes ago.
Really?
Yeah.
You just now, so what do you think?
In makeup. I'm thrilled. I'm excited.
Do me a favor and just go and swing your face out so you're pointed this way so everybody in the audience can see you. Because what you're not understanding is that, Kathleen is a very strong woman anyway, and I think that's a part of your character and your makeup. You would have gone out of your house, you've gone out with your patch. You've been places, but for a person who is so self-conscious, who can't even think about leaving the house, I mean, I can't see it at all unless you kind of like squint and look really hard.
The makeup artist couldn't either.
Which is really amazing.
That's pretty good.
So before this happened, before the opportunity to have this happen, though, had you tried a different prosthetic device?
Yes, I'd had one created several years after the surgery, and it was unacceptable. I couldn't wear it. It was so odd looking. But I really didn't think I was going to live long enough, and I wasn't working and had lost everything, and didn't think I'd have the money, number one, to travel or pay for a new prosthesis because the insurance company had already paid for one. So he was on a show recently, and that's how we found out about it. I'm working at Home Depot right now, and my girlfriend came in and said, this really cool guy was on TV, and you need to get in touch with him. And the rest now is history. It's amazing. And here we are. It looks absolutely amazing. So, I got to take a break. But this is what we're talking about today. There are so many people later on the show. You're going to meet a young man who was at age, I believe he was age 5, 6, was dragged by a car, a hit-and-run driver, a DWI driver, dragged in a car and had his whole ear ripped off the side of his face. Here's a child who's got to go to school, and every single day has to be ridiculed by a bunch of kids, and the worst part is being ridiculed by adults. And now we have somebody out there that's really trying to help us all, be able to deal with life, and I got to applaud you. It's amazing.
Everything just erupted and we just had a fireball. I've been to the gates of hell. You don't want to go there.
First several days, Terry was critical. And I remember once being in the ICU and just asking the nurse, just looking at her and saying, he's going to be all right.
Well, Dorothy and Terry had been married for almost 35 years when a tragic fire changed their lives. I want you to take a look at this.
Terry and I met in high school at a basketball game. We were both 15 years old. Our first date, he kissed me for the first time, and when he did, he said he'd been watching me for a long time, and now that he had me, he'd never let me go. Our relationship's been long, solid, wonderful, and we love each other very, very much. We've had some very wonderful moments with our children. They're just special. We love them so much. I couldn't make it without Terry. He's my other half. He's someone I've loved the majority of my life. I never thought the day that Terry walked out the door that morning that I wouldn't see him that afternoon.
The day of the accident was an overtime day for me, and I had an hour and a half before my shift was over, and I didn't make it. All of a sudden, everything just erupted, and we just had a fireball. I've been to the gates of hell. You don't want to go there.
Sunday, May 13th, day one. I didn't know what your condition was, but I only knew it had to be really bad. The first several days, Terry was critical. And I remember once being in the ICU and just asking the nurse, just looking at her and saying, he's going to be all right, isn't he? And I remember her just holding her hands up and saying, no. Day 13, what I really want is to feel your arms around me again. Hold me really close, and for you to tell me that you're okay.
I'm burned from my waist up, back of my head, my shoulders, my face. I'm disfigured. I lost my right ear. I lost some vision in my right eye, and I lost part of my left ear, and I lost 2 fingers. My 2 little fingers had to be taken off because they were burned so bad. But I'm alive.
Day 41, baby, please know that I try to understand. I can't imagine all that you're going through and doubt if I ever can handle it myself at all. I'm afraid that I would have given up long before.
I could not stand it anymore. The pain was so severe. And she told me, hang in there, honey. You'll be okay. And I did.
I remember a time when I was passing Terry down the hall, and he was looking in the mirror, making a comment. I wish I could just take this face off and throw it in the... I just knew that whatever it took to make him feel good about himself and make him more confident, give him more courage to go out into public, I wanted it done.
Please welcome Terry and Dorothy to the show. First off, I will just say it's a miracle that you did survive this, is it not, sir?
It is.
I mean, the doctors at multiple occasions didn't think you were going to make it through.
Yeah, they said, there was touch and go there for a long time, but through the grace of God, I'm here.
Absolutely. And now we do have to deal with the issue of getting on. I shouldn't say getting beyond, but getting on. I mean,
Exactly.
Life is there to live. You have a wife who's been supporting you, beautiful wife who's hung by your side. For 1 second, will you let people know what it is like? Because I'm trying my best to convince people to understand that maybe it's time for us to become a little bit more damn compassionate in this country. We keep talking trash about how compassionate we are, but maybe it's time for us to start doing it and practicing it. What's it like when you walk out someplace?
Well, you have days that you go out and people will stare at you and ask you. Some people said, what happened? Did it hurt? And,
no, I want to say
duh, one of them. But no, honestly, it didn't hurt. I mean, to be honest, I was burned so deep that beyond the nerves that it actually didn't hurt.
Talk to me once about, you were talking about, I guess it was maybe 60 days, 70 days when they were getting ready to have to do the skin grafts on your back, right? And you were in the room that day. And this was that day that was kind of a defining moment for the two of you, I think, don't you not? When you looked at her and said, I can't. Talk about that for us.
Well, he was having wound care done that day. And of course, Terry had been through months and months and months of severe pain. And I think he'd got to the point that he couldn't handle it anymore, or he thought he couldn't. And honestly, he was ready to take his life.
For a second, let's explain this, because maybe this will make people at home stop for a minute and think before they react to a person who's a burn victim. I mean, third-degree burns below third degree, beyond third degree, because you were burned down into the muscle tissue on your back. And so they have to scrape that
Every day.
and I'm sorry, because I know this brings back, but I want people to know this. They scrape this every day. You went to see Bob, though. You heard about Bob?
Right.
And you went to see him. Tell me what he was able to do.
We got to meet him and sit down and talk to us, and he said he could take care of me. And so we actually went to his office and took my cousin with me for him to use his ears as a pattern. And from there, Bob made an impression of his ears, then he made an impression of my ears, and now I've got my cousin's ears.
Well, now they're your ears, though.
You got
They
that
look
right.
pretty good to me, I'm telling you. And I got to take a break, but just so people understand. I mean, okay, people looking up here and saying, well, you know, this man's burned, and he got some ears, and what difference does that make? I mean, I still see his burns. However, tell them what difference it makes, because if we look at him now, had he walked out without his prosthetic ears, I'm guaranteeing that there have been people in this room right now who are doing what they are trying not to do right this second, and looking at the floor. But you know what? You notice that when you go places, do you not?
Well, you do, but as you get older, it takes that. But also, getting the ears gave me 20% more of my hearing. It was not cosmetic, it was medically also.
Excellent, excellent. So now you got, because you know we don't think about that, but
No.
you need this thing right here to channel the sound into your ear canal.
And at night, I can put them on the refrigerator, and I know where they're at.
That's great. That's great. I gotta take a little break. Again, I didn't get you a chance to say nothing this time. I will when we come back.
He was hit by a car and was dragged for like a mile. Once he realized his ear was gone, he had asked on several occasions he wanted his ear. But he told my husband one day, he said, Daddy, I want you to take me back up to that place so that we can find my ear.
My vehicle had turned over and exploded. And I had second and third degree burns. All the doctors and everybody was telling me that I had to see myself before I left. But I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
You know, Bob, before we go any further, let's talk for a second about this whole idea of what you're doing is giving people prosthetics, something that is attached basically on the outside, the exterior. But sometimes for like an operation like what Bob just had, right? Now, in his case, his operation, they would have had to remove a piece of cartilage from his rib, tried to form an ear, attach it up here, and try to see if they can get the skin to stretch around it. And sometimes it doesn't work out well. This is just something that goes on the outside, less invasive, I would think. I say that. I know you're not supposed to say it, but I can say that. It's less invasive.
That outcome always falls short of everyone's expectation. It never really looks like what you want it to look like. It never looks like an ear. I mean, the good Lord is the only person who can really make an ear look like an ear, you know. And you have to look at it that way too. It's really an invasive procedure.
Well, please welcome Ingra and Byron Jr. to the show. Welcome them. Hey there, Ingra. Well, why don't you tell us what happened to your son? Hey, Byron. What happened to your son, Byron Jr.?
Well, 3 years ago, March 18, 2000, I got a phone call saying he was at the hospital, but he was hit by a car and was dragged for like a mile, about a mile.
Dragged almost a mile.
Yeah.
And when you found out about this, what kind of shape did they say he was in?
Oh, he was torn up. He had a broken leg, fractured pelvis, several burns on his body. But the worst of all, he lost the ear that was on this side. And the injury was so bad, It was down to his skull. There was no tissue left at all.
And so, of course, they try to do reconstruction at the hospital, but to no avail, correct?
Yeah, they did the reconstructive surgery, and we went through years of that up until actually this year. But nobody could do what Mr. Barron did, which was to create the ear.
Let's talk about something for a second. Byron said something to you from the hospital, did he not, about that ear?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Once he realized his ear was gone, he had asked on several occasions he wanted his ear. But he told my husband one day, he said, "Daddy, I want you to take me back up to that place so that we can find my ear," which was something my husband and I knew, you know, it wouldn't be there.
Right. So now, Mr. Byron, Mr. Bob made him, anyway, I want you to stand up and just turn around so we can take a look, because I can't tell which ear was the one that was removed or not. Spin around. And of course it was the left ear.
Yes.
It was the left ear. How you feeling now that you have an ear back, man? You don't get to wear it every day, though, do you?
No.
Because Mom said, you know, 'cause she knows you probably be playing a sport, take it off, stick it over here, and leave it. Huh? So you kind of dole out when he gets to use it.
Oh, yeah. It's a special occasion ear.
But it looks pretty good to me. I can't tell the difference between one or the other. That's another sign of really good work. Welcome Katie to the show. Why don't you talk to us? What happened with you? What's going on?
Well, I was born with a genetic disorder called hemifacial microtia, which causes one side of your face to grow slower than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through 5 years of cosmetic surgery, reconstruction with, I had a cartilage graft, 3 skin grafts. And
this is all for cartilage graft for your ear?
All for that. And every year I was promised something, and it never quite turned out the way that they said it would.
And then you meet this guy.
Yeah. And you know what, like, after going through all that, it seems like I kind of did it for nothing, because over all of that and all of the emotional and physical things that it's done to me, it's really done, you know, this is so much better, and it's just, he does great work. Oh, yes.
There you go.
And I pierced your ear and it didn't even hurt, you know?
That's right, you just made a comment about the fact you got your ear pierced and it didn't even bother you, right? That's pretty good. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
This is the way I'm putting it on. It goes on the chin first, the hair is pulled forward, and then adjust the mask with the ears to put it in place so it's positioned in the right area with her eyes. See?
Well, my next guest was critically injured in a fire, and here's her story. Take a look at this.
Back in 1998, I was working for the Richmond City Police Department as a support officer. In my job, I rode around in a 3-wheel Cushman. It's like a little motorcycle, but it just has 3 wheels. On the day of April 20, 1998, I left home going to work like I usually do. And I got to the station. I remember getting into the vehicle and pulling off to leave the station. And after that, the next thing that I recall was waking up in the hospital. People were telling me that I had been in a serious accident. My vehicle had turned over and exploded. And I had 2nd and 3rd degree burns all over me. They knew when I actually saw myself that I wasn't gonna make it. Well, before I left the hospital, all the doctors and everybody was telling me that I had to see myself before I left. But I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I used to either turn my head away from the mirror or either close my eyes. Just because you were in a serious accident, that doesn't mean that life is over with. It still goes on. It hasn't stopped me.
Please welcome Joyce to the show. It's tragedy. I mean, I can imagine when you were recovering from and in the hospital and recovering and trying your best to recover from the burns. Did you ever think that you would make it back to a point that you could even walk out in public?
No.
No.
I remember sitting in the hospital just thinking one day. I mean, you always ask yourself, why me? But questions like that is never going to be answered.
Right.
Really.
So now, initially, I should say, the amount of damage from the burn, you lost a large portion of your forehead, your nose, the burns that we see now.
Yes.
There was a period of time you couldn't even walk outside. You weren't walking outside, out of choice.
Yes.
So how do people treat you when you walk out? You're out, you go to the store, if you walk to the store just like you are right now.
Well, when it first happened, when I first decided to go out, it was like people would stare all the time. You know, they look at you like you were different from everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And now you ended up making initially for Joyce, what? You made a different kind of a prosthetic device, did you not?
I have a full face prosthetic device that I made for her.
Here's a tape of you, putting on?
That's putting on the forehead patch. She has a forehead patch there, and there's the nose prosthesis that I made for her. Mm-hmm. And that's just that's just for her to use when she's not using the full face prosthesis. Mm-hmm. The full face prosthesis will allow her to interact with the public without having the embarrassing stares and the unwanted attention that's drawn to her differences.
Yeah, and absolutely. So this,
right, and this is what Joyce can put on when she wants to, and it's very easy to put on. You can.
Yeah, here you go. Why don't you talk and take us through this?
This is the way I'm putting it on. It goes on the chin first. The hair is pulled forward, like so, and there's a Velcro strap at the back that I put it on, and then when it's on, she can pull the hair back and then adjust the mask with the ears to put it in place so it's positioned in the right area with her eyes. See?
And now, you know, I will say it's incredible because Joyce, this does give you an opportunity to go out in public and not have to deal with the public reaction.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, can we stop for a second and think about this? We have to have people make masks just because it makes you feel more comfortable? Think about it. It doesn't necessarily make Joyce feel more comfortable. It's to make Joyce feel more comfortable with you. Let me take a break. We'll be back right after this. Just turn around and face the audience and look at everybody over there. Just do a fast look at them, and then you come over this way and look at these people over here. Let's see if anybody can determine what is prosthetic on. Stand up. What do you think? What's prosthetic on there?
I have absolutely no idea.
Before we meet our next guest, Bob, I mean, how long does it take to actually make a prosthetic device?
At times, you know, with Joyce, it took me 3.5 to 4 months
to make the mask.
To make the full face prosthesis.
Crazy. And how many people do you help per year?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. 200, 300, 400? That is amazing. Yeah. I'm telling you guys, too. I noticed with Kathleen, the eye that she has is identical to her other eye, at least as far as color and size of pupil. Did somebody actually spend the time and look at one and tape it and then go out and actually make it just for that person?
Well, you know, you have to focus on realism, just like I did, such as my disguises in the agency. My success with my career today depends on realism, perfection, and the ability to pass close scrutiny. And that's what I build into my prosthetic devices today because of what I used to do in the agency. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not going to give anyone a prosthetic device unless it passes my close scrutiny. If I wear it. If I can wear it, then I'll give it to a patient.
Wow. Well, please welcome Ann to the show. Welcome, Barron. How are you, Ann? Tell me what happened with you. You know what? Wait. See, I'm going to play a little trick because nobody knows at all. So I want to stand up for a second with me, Ann. Let's do this. I'm sorry. And why don't you do me a favor? Just turn around and face the audience and look at everybody over there. Just do a fast look at them, and then you come over this way and look at these people over here because they're closer. What do you think? What's prosthetic on there?
I have absolutely no idea.
You're closer. You were looking really hard. I just watched you. You was like, my boy was like, I'm gonna bust Montel and say, what is it?
I've got no idea.
No idea. Come on, you're there. You're real close. You've been looking at her since I started talking to her. What do you think?
I don't know.
Well, take a guess. Both her eyes, hers?
Yeah, maybe, if anything, maybe her nose.
So what is it? It is your nose.
Yes.
Now, why don't you tell people what was done?
Okay, I had cancer about 12 years ago. It was basal cell, which meant I did not have to have chemo or any kind of radiation. I didn't know much about cancer, so I presumed that I was cancer-free. The doctor never said, make sure you check on it, and I didn't know to do that. So about 6 months ago, I noticed that my nose was collapsing a little bit, and I went to my doctor, and he said I should go to a plastic surgeon. Well, excuse me, I went to the plastic surgeon, and he said that I had cancer. So I had an operation. The pathologist was there to make sure that all the borders were clear, and I lost my nose.
So when you say you lost your nose, just for a second, from where to where?
From here to here.
So the whole nose. Now,
Whole nose.
All this is a prosthetic.
Right.
You can't even tell where it starts.
Right.
So now, before this, you had a different prosthetic nose made, correct?
Yes.
And what was wrong with that one? I won't have to put any companies down, but just what was wrong?
Well, it was wide, it had borders on it, and it was a different color.
It just looked like something, and you go to
Yeah, it looked
costume
plastic. I mean, what can I tell you?
I'm going to get up real close on you for half a second. You not only matched her skin color, but I mean, down to the point that you even matched the freckles on this part of her face.
And the veins.
And the
here.
veins running through it. How long does it take for you to do this?
It took a month to fabricate the whole prosthesis. She can breathe through her nose, and it helps her speech pattern. It's a medical necessity. It keeps the mucous membranes from drying out. I mean, it's a multifaceted medical necessity. It isn't cosmetic.
We'll take a long break. We'll be back right after this. You know, before we meet our next guest, who is kind of a little bit of a different story because she's not one of the people that you've worked on, but I want to talk a little bit about the fact that, just so everybody at home understands this, Bob does this by himself. This has been his passion and his gift back to humanity. But when you're, let's say, and I hate to say it this way, but you know, you retire from the CIA, next week, a couple weeks from now, you have an accident and something happens to one of your hands, there's a whole bunch of children who are not going to be able to get this. And so I'm going to put up a little quote. We got there's a screen up right now that you can look at, see the number on the screen, and you know how to get a hold of Bob. If you happen to be a person out there who's always wanted to work in prosthetics, or you work in artwork, this man could use an apprentice. He's not asking me to do this. I'm doing it for him. I want this done. If you want to be an apprentice, you want to learn how to do this and help put a smile back on some people's faces, I need you to call the number on the screen and get a hold of this man right now so we make sure that this keeps going. And even if you don't want to do it full time, then maybe we can have some plastic surgeons out there or some doctors who have a little spare time. You guys go to conferences all over the country. I know this for a fact. You spend weekends here, weekends there, learning new techniques. Go spend a weekend with my man right here and learn a technique from him. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
We're out of time, so I would tell you one thing. All of our guests that have been out on the stage, some of them are still backstage right now. They can hear you, so why don't you give it up for them right now? And one, two, if you would like more information on Robert Barron's custom prosthetic design, you can go to www.prosthetics.com, and I'm also going to put that number up again to let you know that we're looking for some people who will continue on this charge. I mean, this is something that is amazing that we only have one man in the country who is working this way. I should say there are probably a lot of other people who are making prosthetic devices, and I don't mean to put them down, but I think that there's a person who has a skill that we don't want to lose. And so before, he stops doing it, I think we'd like to get some people out there working with him. Thank you so much, sir, for being you. I really mean that. I'm telling you, thank you. You're an honor to this country. I mean that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Out of time. Join us on the next Montel.